This is State Representative Kerry Condata inviting you to watch our new and improved 12th District 2.0 show. Guest hosts John Wise and Shiloh Shower bring it all home with yours truly, Kerry Condata.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 12th District. Well, the first week of the legislative session is underway, and it's off to a hot start. I printed out the bills this morning. It was several pages long. We're going to be talking to both of our legislative representatives from the House. Keith and Mike will be with us in the second segment. But in the first segment, we're going to take a look at what is kind of the highlight of the week, I guess, the governor's State of the State speech, and of course the response from the Republican side as well. We have some excerpts from both those pieces for you next, and then we will get to our own state legislators and find out what exactly is going on in Olympia. We'll be right back with Governor Inslee and the State of the State.
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The 12th District bringing you in session. This is the first week of the legislative session, and of course the highlight, if you could call it that, was Jay Inslee's speech. We're going to show you some quick excerpts. We took a few pieces from it we think you'll enjoy, and that's coming up right now.
And at the top of that list is the imminent threat of climate change. Just the past few years, our state experienced record high temperatures, record low snowpack in some locations, higher ocean temperatures, and higher acidity in our waters. Historic wildfires blackened our air so much that we had the worst air quality in the world. Not China, not India, Washington State. The smoke shut down outdoor pools in Wenatchee and impacted all of us, forcing kids and older adults to stay inside to protect their health. Scientists say if we don't act now, this will become the norm. A permanent degradation of what we love, our magnificent state. And I don't know of any other issue that touches the heart of so many of the things we all care about, our jobs, our health, our safety, and our children's future. We could not stop at basic education. For anyone who cares about equity in education, early learning is the best way to secure a strong start for every child, regardless of their family's economic circumstances. We are investing in children well before they enter the elementary school classroom for the first time. In the past 6 years, we've nearly doubled the number of children in early learning programs to more than 15,000. My budget builds on that to expand preschool with a new Birth to 3 preschool program. While other places close their borders and fear the unfamiliar, we are the state that opens our communities to immigrants and refugees seeking safety, shelter, and sanctuary.
Well, there you have some pieces from Jay Inslee's speech. He went on to talk about net neutrality, gun control, death penalty, public health options, and of course had to mention the border situation as well. Pretty much a laundry list from the left, but that is Jay Inslee at his best. Now, the Republican response from Jacqueline Maycomer, Representative 7th District, just north of the 12th.
We are home to the state's highest elevation pass, and at one point, some of the highest wages in the state. Now, we're home to some of the state's highest unemployment rates. Decades of increasing regulations and lawsuits by special interest groups have taken a toll on our resource-based local economies. But we're strong, we're adapting, we're fighting to preserve our values, our freedoms, our liberties, and our way of life. But is more the answer? More taxes? The governor wants $3.7 billion tax increase at a time when the state revenue collections are at an all-time high, when you, the taxpayers of this state, have already given more than any time in state history. More spending on new programs? Did you know that if Governor Inslee's budget that he proposed just a few weeks ago were to be approved by the legislature, state spending would have increased by 75% over 8 years? Let me repeat that. 75% in 8 years. How many of you have seen a 75% increase in your take-home pay in 8 years? Is more really the answer? More bureaucracy? At a time when our trust in Inslee's government is very low, with transportation projects behind schedule and costing state taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars more in cost overruns, with potentially thousands of prisoners released early because of technical glitches, only to commit more crimes. With the state being sued at an alarming rate, revealing serious problems in the state foster care system, juvenile justice system, mental health system, where problems at Western State Hospital are so bad, even the Seattle Times says there should be no more excuses. And Inslee's administration has let the dysfunction there persist too long. You heard our governor today tell us that more taxes, more spending, more bureaucracy will solve our problems. But more of his government means less time for you at home with your spouse, your children, your family, your friends, doing the things that bring joy, happiness, and fulfillment to your lives. It seems this governor has forgotten the people like you and me, the ones working hard for every dollar the state government spends. We need to make sure he doesn't forget those of us working in this Washington in his desire to go back to the other Washington. And finally, since the governor has spent so much time and energy focused on an extreme environmental agenda, no matter the cost to you and me, let me say this. Governor, it has been proven that we can reduce our carbon footprint and create a better environment by incentivizing clean energy and market innovations. However, your plan carves out the biggest polluters and puts the costs on the backs of those who could afford it the least, on the people, on our heating bills and on our gas prices, taking more of our hard-earned money, forcing us to continue to live paycheck to paycheck. It also exports our pollution to countries with little to no environmental regulations on their manufacturing processes, and yet the state of Washington still purchases those goods. In the end, Washington workers are hurt, jobs are lost, families pay more for energy and products, and no measurable change is made to global greenhouse emissions.
All right, there you have it. Some excerpts from the governor's speech as well as the response from Republicans. We'll be right back with our very own state representatives to find out what's going on in their committees and their life in the first week in Olympia.
Squirrel Tree at Cole's Corner in Leavenworth is the place to be. New bar, 8 TVs, 2 pool tables, darts, live music, and great food.
Welcome back to the 12th District, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to have our two representatives from Olympia, Washington. They're coming in via Skype today. This is their first full week in session. We're delighted to hear what they have to say. Mike, Keith, good to have you aboard. Tell us what you think of the first week so far.
Well, good afternoon, Kerry. Thanks for having us. I can say that although it's day number 4, it feels like day 100. Things have really hit the ground running, and the volume of bills we've already seen and all of the issues we're already starting to tackle makes it feel like it's a lot later in the session than it is.
Well, I too glad to be here, but it's not good to hear that from Representative Steele, because I thought it was overwhelming for me, but if it's for him also, then that's an indicator of maybe a heightened sense of legislation here this session. There's been a lot of things that have been going through, and for me, like I said, it's brand new, so I really didn't have anything to gauge it by.
Well, I got to tell you, I did pull the list of bills this morning, and I was shocked when I did the printout, and it was 11 pages long, and we're only in the first week. That was pretty amazing to me. Tell us a little bit about, of course, the governor's speech is kind of the highlight of the week, the opening. Tell us what you thought of the speech, what you like, what you don't like. Mike?
Yeah, you know, the governor, of course, seems to be very optimistic about the state of Washington. I don't think we all shared his sentiments entirely. He really focused a lot on climate change and what his policies are going to look like moving forward in the session. Certainly, he'd laid out the foundations for how much money he's trying to convince the legislature he needs. You know, with such a healthy economy and nearly $4 billion in new economic revenue, outside of what we need to raise or what he thinks we need to raise in taxes, I think a lot of us struggle to understand where he's coming from, and I felt like there was a little disconnect with most Washingtonians.
And I guess what I would add is that when you start making commitments during times when revenues are up, I mean, there's really no consideration for a leveling off or even a decline. And what we've seen in the past when we've had a recession or a change in the economic conditions of the state, it really dramatically affects the services that people have come to expect. So we need to be very careful in establishing the priorities of government, making sure any commitments we make are sustainable.
One of the lines caught me by surprise in there. I think he mentioned something about finish funding McCleary. Now, I thought we'd achieved that last year. Is that an indication of where we're going with the McCleary situation?
Well, I think, one of the interesting things is we have seen, as you know, Kerry, I'm ranking on education and now a member of the Appropriations Committee, so it's interesting to see both sides of that conversation. Much of what the governor has been espousing through the introduction of his budget is that a lot of these extra dollars that he wants to spend, he's claiming are coming through maintenance level needs, and is claiming that about $4 billion in K-12 is part of that maintenance level. And I think, we do have some work to do still as it relates to education. We'll never be done funding education or dealing with education funding, but I certainly don't think we need to find new revenues, and I certainly think we've already satisfied McCleary. Now we have to go back and look at how we're, how these school districts have bargained some of their salaries and what that means as ramification in the future, but that doesn't relate to McCleary at all. That was something the districts did with the dollars handed out by the state.
Okay. That was just like something I was surprised by. There was a lot of things in there. It was pretty much a laundry list. Keith, was there anything in there that stood out to you other than the higher taxes?
Well, I think, the climate issues that are raised, we talked about the orcas, the environmental things. And once again, I think we really need to make sure that we're taking care of what is the requirements of government before we start, branching out into some of the discretionary things that I feel that we're talking about.
So, Keith, you're on the Transportation Committee. We've seen some of the ideas put out, including a carbon tax, which is just amazing after it being turned down twice, and then a 6-cent increase in the gas tax and a number of other potential pieces of this new package. Have they rolled that out yet, or have you had any indication of where that's going?
Well, they did talk about the carbon tax, I believe, in the Technology Committee. Transportation, we did talk about that yet. We did have an overview of transportation in general from WashDOT. And so we talked about, the electric ferries and the additional expenditures there, just the needs of the Department of Transportation. One thing that was interesting to me when we talk a lot about climate change, and yet one of the line items that they put in there was an additional $50 million for snow removal. So I don't know how those things all fit together, but it was kind of an interesting footnote.
I guess so. Mike, you're on appropriations. The governor put forth his budget. I believe that was one of the first meetings, if I'm correct. Can you tell us a little bit about how that presentation went?
Yeah, that was actually the very first day, or on Monday, the very first day of session. We did get a presentation from the governor's office on his budget, and Carrie, and from your experience, that it's a heavy committee anyway. But we had 80 people signed up to testify on the first day of the committee, on the first day of session, and every single one of them, without fail, said, "Thank you, Governor, for your appropriation, but we need more." And so it causes you to look at the budget with a nearly $8 billion to $10 billion increase in spending. We don't have an unlimited budget in Washington State. And to Keith's point, when it comes time to prioritize government, we really do have to get serious about it. I mean, I want to support programs and services as much as the next person, but we have to live at some point within the means of the state and within the means of the taxpayer. And when you have agencies from across this state, over 80 of them on the first day of session, claiming that what the governor gave them was not enough in order for them to be successful, it's a bit staggering to start from that point.
Well, I certainly remember those hearings, and Representative Joe Schmick used to keep track of how many people said it was good and how many people wanted more, and it was usually about 9-1. Pretty amazing numbers. At $55 billion, that's just not enough. That's just hard to believe. Anything else on the committees in general that you're seeing on the other committees? Maybe back to education for a minute. Any rumblings there about where it's headed?
Yeah, I think, we will be addressing some special ed issues. We will take a look again at the local levy assistance and what that looks like, what the state apportionment is doing. The challenge that a lot of our districts are facing at home is that they have received more in total apportionment than ever before. They're not recognizing the interchange between local dollars and the exchange that can be made with now the new infusion of state dollars, and trying to explain, that basic education can pay for enrichment, but enrichment can't pay for basic education. And what does that mean for these school districts, and how do they more appropriately balance? The real challenge is that what did the collective bargaining do to all of the dollars that we tried to hand out to every school district in our district? And we, as you know, Carrie, passed the do no harm clause in the budget proviso when we passed the operating budget around McCleary. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, only $2.5 million in total will be going around the state to backfill. That means that outside of that $2.5 million that's going to be used as backfill, all the other districts either were not hurt in any form or received more. So where did that money go?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, and we're running out of time in our first segment here, folks. I do want to hear about that $8 billion in the next few weeks, and if you can track down exactly where it went. Any last comments from both of you before we move on?
The one thing that was gratifying to me is that in my local government committee, there was really an awareness, seems to be more of an awareness of the responsibility that counties are carrying, counties and cities. We had a presentation from cities and the counties talking about, the mandates that have been passed down, and there is a real, I guess, as I said, an awareness that there is a need for additional funding to cover some of those things, particularly the indigent defense piece.
I would say that it's been a great start to the session, although it feels like we've been here a while already. There's a great energy, there's a sense of positivity on both sides of the aisle that we're going to get some good things done this year. It's been very congenial. We obviously start the session that way all the time. Our intent, I think, for both of us in the House representing the 12th is that we'll continue to work collaboratively with our friends across the aisle and try to find real common sense solutions for the 12th legislative district and the state as a whole.
Well, that would be a terrific situation. I hope you can pull it off. We know you're both going to do a fantastic job. We look forward to speaking with you every week here on the 12th District. We really appreciate you taking the time. And folks, I would just say to both of you, buckle your seatbelts. It could get a little bumpy out there. We'll see you next week, guys.
All right. Thanks, Kerry.
All right, there you have it. Our 12th District legislators in their first week in session in Olympia. We'll be talking to them each week at the same time and see what happens in the next few weeks. Should get very exciting as the budget particularly starts to roll out. We'll be right back with the 12th District.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The first week of the legislative session is in the can here at the 12th District. We heard the governor's speech, or at least part of it. Nothing new there, quite a laundry list, but nothing unexpected except a lot of overtones about a presidential run. You can tell where he's headed. He's been traveling all over the nation looking at that very possibility. Of course, the response from Representative Jacqueline Maycomber, nicely done. She's just north of us up in Omak in the North 7th District. And we got to hear from our own representatives, which is great. We'll be doing that every week. It's important that you hear directly from them what's really going on. And of course, my analysis after 16 years in the House. We should have a lot of fun over the next few weeks. Stay tuned to the 12th District. This is Kerry Condado. We look forward to visiting with our state representatives next week. We'll see you soon.
Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.